Good morning, everyone. What's up? What's up? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is November the 26th. It's a Wednesday today. Overall markets yesterday, we ended up actually bouncing off of our key levels that we had marked out coming into this week. Friday's highs on really all the major indices. And then now we're back at last week's highs. So nice kind of rebound here on these SPY and Qs coming into Thanksgiving. We do have a market holiday tomorrow, which is going to be Thanksgiving. So the markets are closed. And then Friday, of course, we do have a half day. So that's basically like an extended weekend as well, since it's going to be fairly low volume. So coming into today, we'll kind of talk about the key levels that we have here in a second. Before we do that, let me pull up the Forex Factory. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, B Roots, Victor, Micro, Jeff. Good morning, Robert, Mozzie, Andreas. What's up, everyone? 50, Detecto, Job, Cody, Cinna, Juan, Hector, I am. Good morning, Vade, Daniel, Layman. What's up, Robert, Wayne, Deuce? Yeah, what's good, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Let's kind of go on to the Forex Factor, at least coming into today. Not too much in terms of red folder news. We do have some unemployment, which is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So fairly similar game plan to yesterday. We'll just kind of mark out some charts for the first 30 minutes. And then once that 8:30 red folder news hits, then we'll kind of develop our game plan from there. So this is what we have coming into today. As I mentioned, we do have a market holiday tomorrow, so there's going to be no trading tomorrow. So there's going to be no pre-market prep. And then on Friday, it is a half day. I most likely will be on as well, but we'll see if there's any sort of setups that do form. With it being a half day, markets do close, if I'm not mistaken, at 1 p.m. 1 or 12. I'll have to get back to you guys on that, but the markets do close early on Friday. So it's basically half day, lower volume. So be a little bit more cautious if you're trading on this day. All right. Let's go on to the charts to see exactly what we're looking for coming into today. One p.m. Yeah. So the markets are going to close early at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So first things first, coming into today here on the overall markets, the key levels that we have marked out. We have your 6,600. We actually had your Friday's highs marked out here as well. You can see overall markets, specifically for the ES and NQ, really came back down in towards our Friday's highs of last week. Really nice hold, right? This is the exact area that we wanted it to hold, which was that Friday's highs. And you can see a nice continuation. Once we got back above, now it's going to be your high that we created here on Monday. We end up having a nice continuation back up and towards your last week's highs. So you can see for the overall higher time frames, we're actually already back at a key higher time frame level. Specifically for the ES, the NQ is lagging behind and has a little bit more room higher. But for the overall markets now, right, we kind of just went from your last week's lows back up and towards your last week's highs. And now you can see we're currently above it here in the pre-market. So for the ES, specifically coming into today, the key levels that we're just going to have marked out is going to be that last week's highs. Plus, it also now coincides with your previous day highs, your 6790. So coming into market open here for the overall ES, the key levels is going to be this 6790. If you want to see any sort of potential continue push towards the upside, key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be our previous day highs, along with kind of this pre-market low. So our 6790s is going to be key for some more upside. If we ended up ultimately getting back underneath, potentially we can see a reversal here and a mean reversion really back in between its yesterday's range. So this is for the ES coming into today. Keep an eye out on that previous day highs. It's really going to be key for both the ES and the SPY. For the SPY chart, similar thesis here. If you zoom out here on the hourly time frame, really solid bounce right off our key level support, exact same level we bounced from originally. You can see big red day, and then eventually we had this mean reversion back towards the upside. Similar thing here, exact same red day, and now you can see bounce right back up and towards your last week's highs. So this is what we have for the SPY coming into today. Now you can see based off the hourly time frame, we're right back at our last week's highs. No tickers shown. Oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah, this is what we have here. So for the SPY chart, you can see multiple touches, key level here, another key touch at this 674. Now for the overall markets, as long as you can maintain above your 674, potential continuation right back up and towards our 680 and above. Ultimately, if we break underneath, right, we're going to see that push back down and towards that 670. So coming into today here for SPY, the key levels that we have marked out, 675. So our previous day highs along with our last week's highs, if you want to see upside, maintain above this key level for potential continuation higher. Ultimately, if we break underneath your 675, use this level as a retest potentially towards the downside. Underneath 675, as I mentioned, previous day highs, and we also have our last week's highs marked out here as well. So this is what we have for the SPY coming into today. Fairly similar thesis. These are the levels we both have marked out. Now let's go on to the QQQ. So the QQQ, as you can see, fairly similar thesis here, but it's just lagging a little bit behind compared to the overall market. A couple of these semis have been really lagging behind. That's kind of dragging down the overall indices. You can see specifically NVIDIA and AMD. These were the main ones we kind of talked about yesterday that were kind of affected by the overall Google situation. A couple bearish news catalysts. These ones are staying heavy, specifically after NVIDIA earnings. But really, the NQ has been lagging behind the ES. ES is already above our last week's highs, whereas ES was already above your last week's highs, whereas the NQ has been lagging behind. So as you can see here, really coming into today, key levels that we have marked out, at least for yesterday, nice bounce right off our Monday's lows along with our Friday's highs once we were able to reclaim. Nice kind of retest later into the session. Now for the key levels coming into today here for the NQ that I'm going to have marked out is going to be our last week's highs. We're going to have our Monday's highs here marked out, which in this case, we can actually just do this. And then we can now also mark out our previous day highs. So this is going to be the key level we have drawn out. So coming into today here for the NQ, what I'd like to see is really the hold above your previous day highs for a potential push back up and towards our last week's highs, being that 25,280. Another possible scenario is if price wanted to pull back all the way back down and towards your Monday's highs, technically would still be bullish, but I don't think this would be a scenario that would be looking for coming into market open. Always possible, but most likely if we do want to see upside, key level as I mentioned is going to be your previous day highs, in this case 25,120. As for the downside, only possible scenario here for downside is going to be a potential kind of rejection underneath your previous day highs for a push down in towards your Monday's highs, something similar to kind of yesterday, how that played out. So that's what we have for the NQ. For the QQQ, key levels are fairly similar. Let's just mark these ones out. So for the Qs, key level that we have marked out, 606. You can see yesterday came back all the way towards our Monday's lows, along with our Friday's highs of last week. Nice buyer stepping in, retest later into the session. Coming into today here for the QQQ, fairly similar thesis. If you want to see upside, maintain above that previous day highs for a potential push up and towards our last week's highs. Ultimately, if we break underneath, right, the next long is going to be off of our Monday's highs, 606. So really two long scenarios here for the Qs. Preferably, we'd like to see the markets just holding now. It's going to be that pre-market lows along with our previous day highs for potential continuation up and towards that 614. If you're looking for some downside, let me actually just mark out your previous day highs here. So for the QQQ, you can just mark it out from the wick to the body right here, 610. So that's going to be our key general level for the Qs. Right, key level as I mentioned here. If you want to see some downside, really the only downside I like is potentially the break underneath for continuation, underneath that 610, or it would have to be kind of the potential kind of pop and fade, which I don't really like as much. So shorts really off for me, off the table. Really coming to this week, I've been more bullish on the overall markets. I've had like a 60-40 stance or even a 70-30. And now you can see the market's really nice push back up and towards now. It's going to be that last week's high. So for the major indices today, key level is just going to be your, as I mentioned, previous day highs, along with our last week's highs on the SPY. And then the Qs, fairly similar thesis. We're going to mark out our previous day highs, and now we can mark out last week's highs here as well. Okay, let's go into some tech names coming into today. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over here now, you guys can drop them in the chat. And I'll go over them for next I'll go over some Mag 7 names, and I'll go over some other tech names for the next really 10, 15 minutes until we have unemployment. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. If you guys do have any tickers or any charts you'd like me to go over, you guys can drop them in the chat now. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. As for Tesla, let's see. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Let's go over Tesla. Okay, so really coming into today, you can see with the overall markets pushing higher here, you can see the VIX is coming down as well. So this is something to talk about here, is that the VIX is coming down. Whenever the VIX is above 20, it's really good for day trades, right? When it's below 20, it's really good for kind of long terms, swing positions, really good for bulls. When the VIX is below 20. When it's above 20, you can trade it both ways, up and down, and there's just a lot of volatility. So as you can see here, VIX really yesterday breaking underneath 20. Most likely now just going to cool off. I do expect the markets to most likely just head back towards all-time highs with kind of the SPY and Qs, right? Bouncing off key levels of support. Really the next level that we have is your all-time highs plus, right, the kind of the Christmas rally coming up as well. So for the overall markets here now, number one, let's take a look at Tesla here. So based off of the higher timeframes on Tesla, the key levels that we have is really this 422. So you can see how many times we've had a touch off this level. Last week, this is really the area that we broke down from, multiple touches here as well. Now we're trying to break above this 422. So really here in the pre-market, if we can maintain above your previous day highs, along with this 422, potentially we can see this flip and a push and really this reversal back towards the upside. So Tesla's going to be one of my main watches coming into today. For now, the hold above your previous day highs, key levels that we're going to have marked out, is going to be really just this last week's highs. So we can change this color. We can also mark it out to your previous day highs if you like here as well. And then we have other levels as marked out. So let me actually just readjust this real quick. So for Tesla, really my key level here is now just going to be that previous day highs pivot point. And then we can also mark out another level here as well. So for Tesla coming into today, let's actually just mark out this. So for Tesla coming into today, the key levels that I have marked out, previous day highs along with our Monday's highs, which is going to be this 422. What I really like to see here is really the maintain above 422 for a push up and towards that 428. So this is going to be the key level for me coming into today here for Tesla specifically. Another possible scenario, yeah, really it's just going to be that previous day high retest along with that Monday's highs. As for shorts, really shorts for me off the table here on Tesla, unless it, right, kind of had a really big push lower right off the bat, got underneath that 420. But I don't think this is in play today. So for Tesla, keep an eye out on that previous day previous day high retest. Another possible scenario, potentially if it has a really strong push right off the bat, potential retest above that 428. So this is what we have on Tesla coming today. This is going to be my main watch, or one of my main watches at least so far. We'll keep that in mind. As for Google really solid push higher right? This one, bullish news catalyst, daily time frame pushing nicely here as well. This one actually ended up filling the gap right off the bat. So came back down towards our previous day highs, which was our Monday's highs. Nice kind of bounce. Later into the session, a bounce again, and now it's just holding above that 320. Other levels we have marked out here now is going to be this 328. So for Google, two scenarios here. Really the reclaim back above your previous day highs right off the bat for continuation higher. Another possible scenario, it comes back all the way to your previous day close, and then you could be looking for the reclaim back above that 328, or if price came all the way back down, potential kind of pullback longs off your previous day lows, 318. So Google, three scenarios. I'd be a little bit more cautious, right? The reclaim, in my opinion, is going to be the best trade, and that would be above your 328. So that's the levels we have for Google coming to today. This one's still fairly bullish here on the higher time frames. So you're still going to keep an eye out on this one. Let's go on to some semis that have been showing a little bit more weakness compared to the overall markets. So now with these semiconductors, if you're looking at this, right, pretty big gap back towards the upside. So we had a gap down here on AMD and on Nvidia here as well. But with the overall markets bouncing up nicely, I do expect the potential kind of gap fill that we do have. So for Nvidia, let me just remove this level here now. So really the key levels that we have on Nvidia were the 174, which is a higher time frame, essentially key level support. Nvidia is really just coming back in towards really this general area, right? So this is why buyers are stepping in. We're just kind of right back down in towards the level that we bounced off of multiple times already. So for Nvidia, kind of this 170, and you can see buyers, right, nice lower wick. Let's see if buyers can potentially reverse this back towards the upside. So for this ticker, key levels that we're going to have marked out is really just going to be your Friday's highs of last week. We have our last week's lows, and other levels we can have marked out now is just going to be our previous day highs. So let's draw this out. Previous day highs 178 also coincides with your Monday's lows. If you want to see upside, maintain above that 178 for a potential push back up and towards our gap fill that we've created. If we want to see some downside, continued weakness underneath your previous day lows, potential fade lower. For my opinion, right, unless the Qs absolutely tanks right off the bat, right, Nvidia and AMD, they have a good chance of filling the gap back towards the upside. So keep an eye out on the previous day highs hold 178 for a continued push higher. As for AMD, fairly similar thesis here. AMD ended up coming all the way back down in towards our last week's lows, some buyers stepping in, and now we're kind of just right back in towards this general area, which is this 204. So this is a pretty big area here for AMD, but overall higher time frames, we're trying to defend essentially this gap fill level. So we're coming back. So we have this gap fill right here. If we're looking at this essentially on the weekly time frame, we're trying to defend this gap fill here on the higher time frames because their next key level support really all the way back down in towards that 180. So for AMD specifically, let's go back onto the lower time frames here now. The chart, a little bit messy, but just based off the higher time frames here for AMD, key levels that we can have marked out. It's a pretty big zone. Let's just mark out similar thing here, your previous day highs, which also coincides with that Monday's low. So in this case, similar thesis here for AMD coming into today. If you want to see upside, we need that reclaim back above that 206. Ultimately, if we reject off this 206, we're just going to come right back down in towards its previous day's range. So keep an eye out on your 206 here on AMD. Exact same thesis along with Nvidia. Previous day highs is going to be key. If we break above, potential gap fills in play. If we reject, then we're just going to come back in between its previous day's range. Let's go on to Apple. So for Apple coming into today, key levels that we have marked out is really this range break. So finally, Apple, we're breaking outside of this range that we have created. And now you can see what we like to now see moving forward, at least on Apple, is the continuation outside of this range 277. So if we can now break outside, which we've currently have, and now we can retest. Potentially we can be looking for this push back up and towards your previous day highs and potentially your all-time highs here, or sorry, your earnings high, which is at this 284. So at least moving forward here now for Apple, it's going to be the hold above your 277. So as you can see, what we have marked out is really our last week's highs. We also have marked out now it's just going to be your Monday's highs. So for Apple, really you like to just see it maintain above your 277 for a push up and towards your previous day highs and above. Apple, if we break back underneath, we're just going to have a mean reversion and we're going to come back towards the downside. So 277 here is going to be fairly key for Apple coming into today. As for Meta, nice mean reversion here back towards the upside. We're now back above this 630. So nice bounce here on Meta. Now key levels that we're just going to have marked out moving forward, 630. You like to see a hold of this level. Amazon, a couple mean reversions on some of these tickers just because overall markets are bouncing here now. VIX is cooling off. SPY and Q is bouncing off a key level support. So you can see a lot of these names bouncing off key levels of support, still fairly weak, but overall, as I mentioned, markets bouncing. So these ones are going to start bouncing here as well. Okay, so yeah, coming into today, I'll go over a few more tickers here, but basically thesis is we're looking for the hold above your previous day highs on both the major indices. My key levels, could keep an eye out on Tesla above your previous day highs, along with this 420. And then I like Google, potential reclaims in play, NVIDIA and AMD. We do have this gap fill, which is definitely in play here as well. I like NVIDIA a little bit more than AMD, but those ones are also in play. All right, let's go on to a few names here. We do have about a couple minutes until unemployment. So I'll go over a couple names and then I will wait for unemployment and then essentially develop my game plan here. What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Going to Palantir, what are your thoughts on a swing position considering it's a short week? With it being a short week, as long as you're not swinging with Friday's expirations. If you have a couple weeks expirations, that's really not going to matter as much. But if you have shorter term expirations, then of course it's going to be affected with it being a short week. As for Palantir, I see a couple of people talking about Palantir. So it's right into a key level support. So as you can see here, really strong, nice push towards the upside, had earnings, and now we're pulling back, really right back down in towards key levels of support. So for Palantir, I like to see at least minimum a potential push back up in towards your 170. So this one has been beaten down along with a bunch of these other semiconductors here as well. The key levels that we have marked out on Palantir, let's go back into the 4-hour, is really this like 170. This is a higher time frame key level here. And this is also the area, as you can see, where we broke down from. So at least coming into today, let me actually mark out some levels here for Palantir. Really for Palantir, the key levels I have marked out, you can mark out your previous day highs along with your Monday's highs, which is your 165, couple touches back here as well. So at least for Palantir, coming into today, let's also mark out now, it's going to be your Friday's highs of last week. So coming into today here for Palantir, right, key levels, previous day highs along with that Monday's highs. If you want to see some upside, maintain above this 165. Right, 165 next level is going to be this 170. If we ultimately break back underneath, we're going to see a push right back in between your Mondays and Tuesdays range. So key level today is going to be that 165. Keep an eye out on Palantir, at least for a shorter term outlook here based off the daily time frame. As I mentioned, this one is lagging a little bit behind, bouncing off key levels of support. So really you just want to see the daily time frame bounce back up in towards this 170 at a minimum. Right after earnings, right, pretty big push lower. You want to see it bounce back up in towards 170. That's going to be key. AVGO continues to show strength, nice bounce, all-time highs. Key level yesterday, it actually came all the way back down in towards our previous all-time highs along with our previous day highs, right? Pretty sharp rejection, as you can see. It's actually going to the 4-hour time frame, so you can see pretty sharp rejection right off our all-time highs in the pre-market, and then this one pushed back towards the downside. So for AVGO, at least moving forward today, what we're going to have marked out is your 390. This is going to be the major level for continuation higher. If we reject, we're just going to come right back towards the downside. So 390 is going to be key for AVGO. All right, what's up? We do have some unemployment here in a second. What's the best trading strategy for stocks that drop at market open? Then rise again. Most likely the dip and rip. But right off the bat, if you're looking for something that's bullish, a lot of the times you want to see some sort of pullback, either that be on the 5-minute or the first minute candle. You're essentially just looking for the dip and rip. Okay, so we're waiting for some unemployment here now. We'll see how this affects the overall markets. Okay, so we just had some unemployment numbers. As you can see, came in a little bit lower than expected. Forecasted 226. The actual numbers came out to be 216. So we'll see how the market reacts based off those numbers. But overall market's still fairly bullish. Yeah, basically no reaction here on the major indices. But for now, at least moving forward, key levels is going to be your 610. So coming into today here for the overall markets, as I mentioned, SPY, we're already above your last week's highs. With the overall VIX cooling off, right? No sign of sellers stepping in, right? We're at or above your last week's highs now for the overall markets, right? Just make sure that whenever the VIX is going down and the market's rising, right? The markets can rise on low volume, right? That is fairly bullish. When the markets rise on low volume, that's a good sign, because when the volume picks up, that's usually a good sign that we're going to have a bigger push higher. At least for the SPY coming into today, as I mentioned, 675, right? Maintain long bias above your 675 towards the upside. Be a little bit more neutral if we break underneath this 675. That's essentially my game plan today. For Qs, similar thesis. I'm going to be long bias for a push up in towards our last week's highs. If we push up higher right off the bat, right, then I'm going to be a little bit more patient, just because we already kind of met its main objective. But we can be looking for pullback longs for a push up in towards our last week's highs. If the market, let's say within the first 5 minutes, big pop, then I'm going to be a little bit more cautious, just because we already hit our main objective. We're going to have a little bit of a gap fill towards the downside. But for the Qs and SPY, coming into market open at least, right, we're going to maintain a bullish stance for continuation higher. As for the major watches coming into today, Tesla, as I mentioned, above your previous day highs along with your Monday's highs for continuation, above your 428. For other tickers that we do have, right, Google, this one's pulling back down in towards your previous day close. So for Google, now it's going to be your previous day close and a potential reclaim back above this 327, or now this pullback long offer 320s in play. And then for AMD and Nvidia, I like these ones as well, right? Key level 178, previous day highs, right? Maintain above, potential gap fill back up in towards your 181. So I like a couple of these names for some long side today. The only way I'm shorting the market is if we have a steep rejection off of your 614, or if the SPY, right, has a really big rejection right off the bat, gets underneath your 675. That's the only way I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the downside. But we're just going to wait regardless for the kind of that first 10 to 15 minutes to play out to see the reaction that we have off those levels. For some other names that I do like, a couple mean reversions here, but primarily, right, Tesla, Google, Nvidia. A couple other ones, AMD, I like this one here as well. Palantir, potential reversal above your Mondays and Tuesdays highs is in play. AVGO, so AVGO, I do like this one on the higher time frames, but you can see multiple touches here. I don't really like the hourly setup, but you can see based off the higher time frames, potential kind of like cup and handles in play for a push higher, right? So you're either going to be waiting for that kind of retest once again, or now it's going to be really that break above 390s for that continuation higher. So AVGO, we'll see how that forms here. 390 is going to be key. And then let me take a look at some other names here now as well. Go over some other names for the next really 5 to 10 minutes here. Oracle, pretty big push lower, really just right back in towards a key level support here now. But Oracle, really big push lower. Key levels that we have now is just going to be your previous kind of resistance turned into support. So you can see really solid push, right? Overextended. And then now you can see whatever goes up in a straight line like this usually has a straight move lower. But now you can see Oracle, some buyers are going to step in here off this 190. And now for this one, right, 190 based off the higher time frames, you would like to see a push back up and towards your 214. It would be nice if Oracle could have a potential mean reversion back up and towards this 214. Let me go over, let me see a couple other ones. Let me go over gold real quick. QA. How do you draw those? How do I manually draw those? They're just manual drawings. So I go into trading view. If you draw a box, you go into the settings and you can see, right? You go into style and you can click extend left, extend right. They're just manual levels, old highs, old lows. So for gold, similar thesis, nothing's really changed here, right? Kind of multiple touches, right? We're getting tighter and tighter. If you can get that break, potentially we can see continuation higher. So this is just kind of what we have here on gold. Nothing else too much to talk about. I already went over Apple, Hood. I'll go over Hood and SoFi. So for Hood and SoFi, so these ones are in a key spot. So if you're interested in Hood and SoFi, right, for a potential kind of trade back towards your all-time highs, right, these ones are good buys with the overall market, right, expecting that Christmas rally coming into end of year. So these ones are now pulled back like 30%. Right, these ones would be good trades back up and towards your all-time highs. So for something like Hood, let's kind of go into right the higher time frames. Really now it's just coming back into consolidation. So original consolidation, we had that break, continuation higher. Now it's just going to come back into this general consolidation level. Now for Hood, key levels that we have marked out is a couple areas that we broke down from. So number one, really it's this 124. So we have multiple touches here. 124 is really the area that we broke down from. So for Hood, if you want to see upside now, really above your 124. If we reject, we're just going to come right back down and towards that 114. And then for SoFi, this one, I still like this one a lot here on the higher time frames, maintaining above that earnings high. And then basically maintaining above that earnings high, been really just consolidating above your all-time highs. We're looking for that kind of next leg higher. But for SoFi, key levels that we have marked out, right, really this 25, 26, and now we also have marked out your 29. So this is what we have here. Oops, multiple touches. For SoFi moving forward, longs, you like to see maintain above this 29. Rejection, it's going to come right back towards the downside. All right, so that's what we have today. Okay, let me quickly go over. So game plan today, as I mentioned, right, maintain above that previous day highs, which is going to be key for push up and towards your last week's highs. For SPY and Qs, for SPY, maintain above your previous day highs along with their last week's highs. And then for Tesla, previous day high retest for push higher. Google, potential now, it's most likely going to pull back just a little bit more. So Google, key level previous day close. NVIDIA and AMD, I like these ones for a potential gap fill reversal trade. So that's what we have here. Apple, I like this one here on the hourly time frame above your all-time highs here now. Key level is going to be this 277. But that's what we have for the overall markets. As I mentioned, coming into market open, we're gonna maintain a bullish stance up and towards your last week's highs here for SPY and the Qs. Now with this nice rally, so we had some news last week that kind of dropped, or we didn't even have news that dropped the overall markets, and now you can see we're rising. VIX is dropping here as well. So the overall markets here now, I most likely expect a potential kind of move up and towards our all-time highs to kind of end off the year, which is a good sign, right? Kind of the Christmas rally, which is coming really around the corner here as well. So that's what we at least have moving forward. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, is a market holiday, so no pre-market prep tomorrow because the markets are closed. Friday, I'll be back on, but as I mentioned, half day, so we'll see what kind of shapes up here on Friday as well. But hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. And then, yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Hope you guys have a great holiday as well for anyone that's um, celebrating it, specifically the Americans. For Canadians, we already had it, but American Thanksgiving. And I will see you guys all on Friday. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.